Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my movie vlog, and this is the companion video. Every day on the John Campus Show and on Open Mic, we take a little bit of time to take live questions. Often we don't have time to get through all those live questions, but I want to make sure that when you know that if you send those questions in, they do get answered. So I gather up those questions that don't get answered live, and I bring them here to the companion video. So without wasting any time, let's get to today's batch of questions. And the first one comes to us from History Soup, who writes, if Miller is guilty, will be hard to go watch Deadpool 2. Well, of course, we're talking about TJ Miller here. He has been just making life very difficult for himself and anybody that is associated with him. First, a couple months ago, that whole stuff came out about him assaulting a girl in university. Then, of course, there was the whole thing about him assaulting an Uber driver. And now the story that came out in Variety the other day was that he got into an altercation on a train with a woman. The Amtrak staff threw him off the train. And then to get back at them all, he called 911 and described the woman he was arguing with and saying she was carrying a bomb, which could have gone so badly and could have caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. And, of course, terrified a lot of people and all that kind of stuff. And it was just idiotic. Here's the thing. I mentioned on the John Campus Show the other day that if I'm a producer, at least until he cleans up his act and doesn't act like an ass for another 3 or 4 years straight, I don't want to work with him. Because I'm going to constantly be in fear that if I put him in my movie, then he's going to do something stupid before my movie opens, and it's going to, compromise my movie. It's going to hurt my movie. Just like kind of Deadpool is probably facing right now. You probably got the producers of Deadpool, and you probably got Ryan Reynolds, and you probably got people who are oh my God, people should be talking about how excited they are Deadpool 2 is coming. Instead, we're talking about TJ Miller acting like a stupid ass. But at the same time, I don't know that it would make it look. It's not like it's Deadpool 2 starring TJ Miller. It's not like he's the main character in the film. I don't even know how much of the film he's going to be in. And I don't know that's going to make it hard for me to watch Deadpool 2 just because he's acting like a complete jackass outside of, away from the set. So I don't think it'll be difficult for me because he has a small role in it. But again, if I'm a producer today, I don't want to work with him. Even though I have a huge amount of respect for TJ Miller as a performer, I think he's crazy entertaining. But again, if I'm a producer, I ain't risking my movie by putting him in it, at least not for a few years. And he can prove that he can go 2 or 3 years without some kind of controversy surrounding him. Alan Gonzalez writes, I saw Ready Player One twice in theaters with my kids, and I was amazed that they recognize a lot of the references, and they are 5 and 7. It's crazy. You see a movie like Ready Player One, and you're thinking, well, only certain people are going to get a lot of these references. But you're right. I have been surprised. Even my wife, went in there and was oh yeah, I recognize all this crap. And it's so fun. And, you never know which references you missed. You only know the references you get. You don't know the references you missed. But it is kind of crazy that kids that age, Ellen, can actually recognize a lot of stuff. I'm sure they got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I could see why they'd get Chucky. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there, so that's kind of crazy. All right, let's try this. Really Tired 64, I like that name, writes, what did you think of Ronda Rousey's WrestleMania debut? This has come up a couple times already. I was really impressed. And I was skeptical about her joining WWE. She's got no mic skills. So the best thing they could do for her is get her a manager like Paul Heyman, because Brock Lesnar doesn't have the best mic skills either. So they gave him a Paul Heyman who is a master at mic skills, right? So she should get a manager like a Paul Heyman. But in ring, she was dynamite. Just dynamite. I thought she was really good. She looked smooth. She looked completely confident in there. I thought she was a great in-ring performer. And it'll be interesting to see how she does from here on out. Bomb Squad writes, do you think if Star Wars had as many movies released every year as the MCU, it would still have $3 billion movies in a row or vice versa? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But they don't put them out that many, that few in a row. Look, at the same time, if you had Avengers Infinity War out today, and then you waited a year for Ant-Man and the Wasp, I still don't think the Ant-Man and the Wasp makes $1 billion. And I love Ant-Man. But it doesn't make $1 billion just because it waited a year. So yeah, I have very little doubt. But look, I still don't think, for the record, I do not think Solo is going to make $1 billion. I do not think so. And it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be $1 billion film to be successful. But I don't think Solo will be $1 billion film. And that will just prove the point. Because here we've got Solo coming out. When did Last Jedi came out in December, and you got Solo coming out, so January, February, March, April, May. You got Solo coming out just 5 months after the last Star Wars movie. And it's not going to make $1 billion. It's not going to make $1 billion. You could have put that movie out 5 years from now, and it's not going to make $1 billion. So no. But so yes, even if The Force Awakens, even if Last Jedi, and even if Rogue One all came out in the same year, I still think they all make $1 billion, probably pretty easily. All right, let's see here. Next one comes to us from Briggs6262, who writes, do you think Disney/Lucasfilm is waiting to see how Alden Ehrenreich is received as Solo before announcing their plans for Leia in 9? No. I don't think that'll have anything to do with it. I think they're waiting till after Solo comes out because they want the attention to be on Solo. Right now, they want all the Star Wars attention to be on Solo. That's why they made all those other announcements weeks ago. Why they got the Game of Thrones guys announcement out of the way, why they got the Jon Favreau stuff out of the way, why they got the Rian Johnson thing out of the way so much earlier, is so that we could get into this home stretch and just have all the Star Wars universe attention on Solo. That's where they want the attention to be. So are they waiting until after Solo comes out to make probably make it publicly known what they're doing with Leia? Yes, but it's not because they want to wait and see how the public reacts to Alden Ehrenreich. No, they're just waiting till Solo comes and goes because they want all the attention undivided on Solo. So that's kind of what I think about that. All right. Bomb Squad then writes, test screenings for episode 9 say too much Iron Spider. I was about to say, what the hell are you talking about? Test screenings for episode 9. Oh, I see. Still the Iron Spider stuff. It's never going to go away. Ricardo Ramirez writes, do you watch Andre the Giant documentary last week? Probably you meant, did I watch? No, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm dying to watch it. And you know what? The frustrating thing is I'm not going to get to watch it today. I probably won't even get to watch it tomorrow, but hopefully within the next few days, I'll get a chance, because I have been dying to watch this documentary. Just dying to watch it. Holy Jeebas writes, now that you have witnessed the epicness of Into the Badlands, how do you feel about Daniel Wu playing Marvel's Master of Kung Fu, either in film? Well, it's the same answer I'm going to give everything. I don't care. Like, if you announced him doing it, great, fine. You announced 50 other guys doing it, I'll say great, fine. As long as it's a good actor or performer. And would he fit the bill? Sure, yes. He's one of those performers that I would not be against playing the role. So if they announced him tomorrow, I'd be, yeah, that's cool. That's a good one. But there are 50 other guys that they could announce. So I go, yeah, he'd be good at that too. Like, so I really don't care. That's always my answer to which actor, or how do you feel about X actor playing X role? Sure, why not? I mean, that's my answer every time. But I am loving Into the Badlands. Absolutely loving. I'm on season 2, episode 4. I'm about to start episode 4 of season 2 right now. Loving this show. Loving this show. Okay, Jordan Fry writes, the playoffs are here. What a glorious day. Go Pens. Go Pens indeed. They're my next favorite team after the Leafs. I've been cheering for them ever since the days of Mario Lemieux. There was a period there that Mario Lemieux is my favorite player. He's still amongst my top 3 favorite players of all time. Love Mario Lemieux. And then, of course, Sid the Kid came along. And, yeah, I've just been cheering for the Pens ever since. If the Leafs aren't there, then the Pens are the team that I go for. Let's see. Joshua Stevens writes, if John Boyega joins the MCU, thoughts on them maybe casting him as a young... Oh, no, that'd be a stupid idea. Absolutely ridiculous. No, I don't want a whole prequel series going on. Like, why would you bring in a John Boyega and then isolate him completely and put him in, like, make prequel movies? I hate the idea. I mean, sure, they could do that, but I would personally really, really hate that idea. I don't like the idea of prequel shit. I like stories moving forward. I would rather see, if you're going to bring John Boyega into the MCU, I'd rather see them bring him into a current role so he can be a part of the MCU. If you're doing a Fury prequel, it's not really part of the MCU. It's part of MCU in days past, but I would rather see them bring John Boyega in and have him join the current MCU. That's how I'd feel about that. Eric Hoffman writes, hey, John, just wanted to say go Bruins. Hey, man, I love the Bruins. They're a great team. They are playing my Leafs, but the reality is the Bruins are a great team, and they have home ice advantage. I suspect and I expect, even though the Leafs won the season series against them 3-1, I suspect the Bruins will win this series in 7 games. That's my guess. Jeremy Miller writes, over under 65%. Infinity War pushes over 235 million opening weekend. 65% lower. I take the under. Take the under. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's a high number for a number like that. For a $235 million number, 65%, no, I'll take the under on that. If you set the number at like 30%, I'd take the over, but at 65, I'm definitely going to take the under on that. Rodrigo Ramirez writes, you say Spielberg is the best director ever because he tackles all genres and subgenres. No, that is not what I say. Anyway, let me finish your question. Do you think of acting the same way? Daniel Day-Lewis only does dramatic roles. First of all, let me be very, very clear. I never said Steven Spielberg is the best because he does all types of genres. I think that just puts an exclamation point on it. Like, he does everything great. And I've never seen another director who can do everything great. Like, he can do a movie like The Post that was just nominated for Best Picture. And he's amazing at it. And he makes it nominated for Best Picture. He can do a movie like E.T. and becomes an all-time great. He can do a nature horror film like Jaws and one of the greatest of all time. He can do Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of the greatest of all time. He can do Schindler's List. He can do Saving Private Ryan, epic war movie. He can, you name it, he can do it, and he's the best at them all. It's not just because he does tackles all any director can come out and tackle all of them. It's the fact that any film he touches is going to be epic. Whether it's a war movie, whether it's a sci-fi movie, whether it's a fantasy movie, whether it's an adventure movie, whether it's a period piece, whether it's a heavy drama, it doesn't matter. He'll do it, and he'll kick the ass of all of it. And that's the thing. It's his greatness that makes him great. It's not that he does everything. It's that he does everything better than anybody else can. Now, as far as the comparison to acting, no, you can't compare it. Directing and acting are completely different things. Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest of all time because no actor in the history of acting has ever made you believe, no matter what character they're playing, that you are not watching an actor on screen. You are watching that real-life character. That's what Daniel Day-Lewis does. That's why he can walk into any movie and win Academy Awards for doing it. Now, he is stuck to drama because he feels that's the most challenging. And that's what he's talked about that before. I would have loved to have seen him do a comedy. But I mean, comedy is a different set of skills than acting. Comedy is acting, but it's different from what you're called upon, like what Steve Carell does. Well, Steve Carell's a pretty damn good actor in his own right, too. But what he does, or what like a Will Ferrell does, or stuff like that, that's a different thing altogether. But yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis, totally different sort of thing. Now, if Daniel Day-Lewis did come out and do a comedy, and did a horror film, and did a, I don't know, I did a comic book movie and kicked their asses in all of it, then that would show an awful lot of diversity. But this diversity we already know he has. He can play anything, anytime he wants. And I think we all kind of know that. Kedar Padgur writes, hey John, India has its own comic called Chandamama from 1949 to 2013. Disney was to buy it, but could not. Well, that's interesting. I hope Disney buys it and retells those classic Indian stories to the world. More princesses. So I'm taking it, let's see. I'm taking it that Chandamama is a female princess character. That's great. You know what? I've never heard of it, but that would be awesome. It's really cool that we can get people from other cultures telling us about something that's in their culture we haven't heard of yet and wants to bring it to the forefront. That's great. I hope what you're talking about works. I hope that Disney or Marvel or whatever, if it's a comic book, whatever, I don't know what it is, but it would be great if we got exposure to those types of stories. So I hope that works, man. Thanks for bringing that up. Ash Berrien writes, do you think that before Loki dies, he lets it slip to Thanos that he gave the Reality Stone to the Collector? I think Thanos already knows where every single stone is. I do. I think Thanos knows where every single stone is. I think I think it's going to be revealed that part of the timing of Thanos was the death of Odin. I really do. I think there's like a solid 15% chance that when we get into seeing Infinity War, which means it likely won't, but I think there's a solid 15% chance that when we get into Infinity War, it's going to be revealed that the timing of this is not coincidence, that the timing of Thanos making his big move is going to be the coinciding with the death of Odin. I think that's going to be a part of it. I can't completely justify that, but I think there's a 15% chance. All right, Arrow Olsen writes, people should stop trying to excuse TJ's actions. Yeah, no, I agree. But, you know, it's at the same time, it's kind of a natural thing. When we're a fan of somebody, we want to defend them. That's our first natural instinct, if we want to defend them. So, like, when I'm a Conor McGregor fan, so when the whole thing happened with him assaulting everybody and bringing a gang of thugs to a hotel, and people are on buses and throwing things through windows on buses, putting people's lives at risk. At first, I tried to defend him in my head. In my head, I was like, oh no, that was just, he's just doing it for publicity and put on the show. But then when you really get past that and you look at, no, he acted like an asshole. He needs to be in jail, and he should never be allowed to fight in the UFC again. We got to be able to move beyond that. And I understand, because I'm a fan of TJ Miller too. I think the dude's one hell of an entertaining guy. I love seeing him on TV or in movies or whatever, but you're seeing an emerging pattern here. And you can only make excuses so many times before you start to realize there's a pattern. And what we see when we look at TJ Miller is an emerging pattern. And unless he's held accountable, he's not going to break the pattern. I want to see TJ Miller break the pattern and get a full thriving film career going again, because I think he's too entertaining to not. But for him to get there, he's got to be held accountable for what he's done. I think he needs to be kind of, I want to say expelled. Maybe expelled is the right word. He needs to be expelled out of the movie business for a while, and really have a chance to change his attitude on things and get his head on straight, and then come back and thrive. But until people hold him accountable for his actions and stop making excuses for his actions, that's never going to happen. That's just the way I see it. Let's see. The One Who Eats Lemons. I love that name. Have you ever played or watched the Batman Arkham video games? There are 4 of them, and they would make amazing cutscene movies. Love your show. I actually thought about doing a cutscene movie review for the first one. And I sat down and started watching it. And about 40 minutes into it, I turned it off. Maybe it's a great game to play, but trying to watch it as a cutscene movie was painfully boring to me. And maybe other people love it, and that's great. I wish I loved it. I was looking forward to it, but it just didn't work for me. So anyway, that's just my experience with it. It sucks that it's not as positive as many other people's. Let's see. Jan Mohammed writes, how do you compare Ultron with other MCU villains? You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I think Ultron is an underrated MCU villain. I know there are some people who didn't love Age of Ultron. Totally cool. I quite like it. But really, I think Ultron himself was a really good villain. There was a dark, menacing part to him, but there was also quippiness to him, a sarcasm to him. That I appreciate and I thought worked. James Spader doing the voice of him was great. You know what? I liked Ultron. And it was the first, other than Loki, it was the first MCU movie that I really saw them put emphasis on the villain. Because most MCU movies, they don't put emphasis on the villain. We're seeing them starting to change that lately. Obviously with Killmonger, a little bit with Hela, but Ultron was the first one that I really saw them putting a lot of emphasis on the villain other than Loki. And I like him as a villain. I really do. I thought he's one of the stronger MCU villains. Drew G writes, Avengers post-credits. Hawkeye and Nick Fury are in a dark room. Fury stands over a woman revealed to be Brie Larson as Captain Marvel and says, time to wake up. I don't know about that, but it's a very popular theory that the post-credit scene will involve Captain Marvel. And I think there's a lot of really good logical reasons to buy into that theory. Whether it would be something like this, I don't think Captain Marvel's been asleep. I think probably you just have Carol Danvers just wants nothing to do with being Captain Marvel. I don't know. We'll have to see. So I don't know if this specific kind of scenario would work out. But, Drew, you're not alone in this theory that the post-credit scene will somehow involve Captain Marvel. I have a feeling there's going to be 2 post-credit scenes. One will involve Ant-Man. One will involve Captain Marvel to coincide with the upcoming movies, Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel. So I think that will be a part of it. Daniel Rivera writes, my favorite actor is Benedict Cumberbatch. Thank you. Well, you know what? I love Benedict. I think he's great. I remember the first time I got to meet Benedict was during a press junket for the Hobbit movie when he was doing the voice of Smaug. And I got to sit there with him for a good 15 minutes and just talk to him about that stuff. And he was really charming. Like, you could tell he had a lot of fun making the movie. He just lit up talking about it, which is great. And he's a phenomenal actor. He's not in my personal top 5, but he is a phenomenal actor. And I love that you love him. Javier Belmer writes, hey, John, a friend of mine says people like to go watch a bad film. And while I certainly agree, it got me wondering, are there any films that were marketed as bad and then wowed the crowd? I don't know that people like to watch bad movies. I mean, for instance, like the last Transformers movie, there was no joy in watching that movie. There's no love or joy in watching that movie whatsoever. I'm sure all film is subjective, so I'm sure there are some people out there that liked it, but they are few and far between. So I don't know that I agree with that assessment. I mean, to some people, like, you get a movie like, say, Cool as Ice with Vanilla Ice, right? It's a horrible, horrible, horrible film. But there are aspects to it that make it a joy to watch. For all the wrong reasons, but make it a joy to watch. So even in that, it's not really a bad movie. It's a bad movie that carries a lot of entertainment. So I don't think in general, like when a total stinker, horrible movie comes out, I don't think people love, I want to go see a movie that's horrible. I don't think there's anybody that really thinks that way, or at least very few. But we all have guilty pleasure movies, like mine, Cool as Ice. Guilty pleasure movie, right? I think we all have that. But honestly, off the top of my head, I can't think of any movie that was marketed as, this is a bad movie, come see it. I don't think anybody's ever done that. I think if they thought that would work, they would do it, but I think they know it wouldn't work. But I don't know, maybe you guys can think of a couple of movies that were like literally marketed as, hey guys, this movie we made is terrible, you should come see it. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can think of some. If so, please jump into the comments section, let me know what you think. It's an interesting discussion. Royce Freeman writes, did a Kevin Smith and pooled resources, but no money set aside for marketing. No sales rep, self-distribute, or an interested genre distributor buy and have big overhead. Not much paid to filmmaker. I'm not really clear, Royce, on what it is you're saying. It sounds like you're saying did you finance your own film? If so, that's really cool. If you did. But you didn't have anything set aside for marketing. No sales rep, self-distribute. Are you asking to self-distribute or get an interested genre distributor to buy it? Guys, you got to be a little bit more careful when you're actually writing out your thing so people can know what it is you're talking about. I'm just taking a guess here, Royce. I'm guessing you made your own film, but you don't have money for marketing and you don't have a sales rep. And are you asking if you should self-distribute or get a genre distributor that might involve more overhead? Again, I don't even know if that's what you're asking. Guys, you got to be careful. Please read over what you're writing before you hit send. Because I'm reading this and I'm not sure I can make heads or tails of it. Let me go on the assumption that you're saying you made your own film, you got no money for marketing, and you're wondering, should you self-distribute or should you try to find a genre distributor that may force you to incur more overhead? I'll tell you my situation. When I did my movie, The Anniversary, I had a distributor that was interested in the movie. They wanted to pick it up. And it was the same distributor that had the distribution rights, the home video distribution rights to the Boondock Saints movies. Anyway, the problem was that they were willing to distribute it, but they needed certain things done to the film first, which was understandable. It was totally understandable. Those things were going to cost me more money. Money that I didn't have, and money I didn't want to go and try to raise. I ultimately chose the self-distribution model. And I had some success with it, actually. So, hey, yay! It didn't become a household name. It didn't make it onto the shelf of stores or anything like that, but it did well enough for my purposes. So my recommendation is based on extremely limited experience. I had one film I did. I did two, but one was a documentary. That's different. But and so on my extreme limited experience, which means my advice should not be taken very seriously, to be honest with you. But my advice would be self-distribute. That's my advice. But then again, that may not even be what it is you're asking. And there are a million details to your particular project that I don't know about that might make my advice bad. And again, I'm not the best person to give advice because I've done it once. Much better to talk to people who actually do this for a living who would know better than me. But I'm just letting you know that's what I did. So there you go. All right. Efren Garcia writes, Happy Wednesday. I hope your day is good as mine. Infinity War has never been so imminent. That's true. Happy to be alive. However, I'm just worried about my man Meek when Thanos busts into that ship. Pray for him. Dude, there's a lot of questions. Like, it's Meek, it's Korg, it's Heimdall, it's Valkyrie. Like, what happens to the rest of them? Let alone all the Asgardians. The entire population of Asgardians are on that ship. We know Thor makes it off the ship because we see him in the trailers. We know Hulk makes it off the ship because we see him in the trailers. Meek, Korg, Valkyrie, Heimdall, where's the rest? And we assume Loki gets killed, but where the hell's the rest of them? And so I'm with you, Efren. I'm worried about Meek. Oh, Meek, you're not dead. I'm worried about Meek. I'm worried about Korg. Piss off, Ghost. I'm worried about all these characters. Like, a lot. I am dying to know what happens to them. Did they get on some kind of escape pod? I don't know. I got to assume Valkyrie isn't dead because they've been talking about doing more movies with Valkyrie, so I'm assuming she's not dead. I don't know. But we're going to have to wait and see. But you're right, man. I'm worried about Meek. Metal Gear Kieran writes, what if Loki doesn't die? Just talking about how Loki dies. What if Loki doesn't die on the ship, Thanos invades, but instead becomes an advisor to Thanos like Mephisto in the comics? Hard time believing that. Because, first of all, villains like Thanos don't tolerate betrayal, number one. And number two, they don't tolerate failure. Loki betrayed and failed Thanos. He both betrayed and failed Thanos. And I really don't see Thanos letting that slide. I think Thanos is killing himself some Loki. So he certainly isn't going to take him on as an advisor in any stretch of the imagination. Loki has to answer to Thanos for a couple things, and Thanos is coming to collect. So yeah, I don't see it happening. I just don't see the scenario you're painting happening. It's just too much stacked against it. Interesting thinking. And I would love it if Loki lived, but I don't see that happening, unfortunately. The Pretentious VD writes, Hey, John, guess who loves you? I do. That's who. Hashtag Spider-Man. Well, thank you so much, man. I love Spider-Man, too. I love Spider-Man. That's why I think he's cool enough to not have to be Iron Man Jr. Let's see. The number Thor writes, over under 60% that Spider-Man will have the Iron Spidey suit as his main suit in Homecoming 2. Let me try that again. Over under 60%, Spider-Man will have the Iron Spider suit as his main suit in Homecoming 2. Or will he have his original suit in Homecoming 2? Well, over under that 60% that he has the Iron Spider suit as his suit in Homecoming 2. 60% is a good line. That's a good line for it. Sadly, I'll take the over. I would love it if they get back to just an original classic Spider-Man suit where Peter realizes he doesn't have to be Iron Man Jr. to be a great superhero. I hope that's the case, but for right now, I sadly will have to take the over. It's a good number, it's a good line, but I'll take the over on that. Let's see here. Gabriel Bessa writes, considering Hollywood loves underdog stories, and as a diehard Eagles fan, over under 50%, what are the chances we will see an Eagle/Foles movie? 0. And by the way, they were nowhere near underdogs, as much underdogs like to say they are. Like, I predict, you watch, I called it. Even though the Patriots are my team, I called it. The Eagles were just too good. And Foles was just too good. The moment Foles had to take the starting job because the starter got injured. I said, why is everybody bailing on the Eagles? This is still the same team, and lest you forget, Foles is a Pro Bowl quarterback. This is the same dude who threw 7 touchdowns in one game. Why is everybody ditching on this? Like, I talked about that for months before the Super Bowl. And when the Super Bowl came, I said, look, guys, the reality is here, the Eagles are going to win this game. And I think a lot of people realize that too. They were not as big underdogs as people like to pretend they were. They were a great team. And they gave the Patriots a hell of a game. And it was a wonderful game. And I loved it. It was a privilege watching every minute of that game. I loved it. Obviously, I wish the outcome was different, but that doesn't take away from how great the game was. Huge congrats, but no, you're not going to see a movie based on that. Let's see. Suburban Nerd writes, Phil, like Last Man on Earth, felt A Quiet Place was overhyped. Are you comparing the TV show? I don't understand. Okay at best. Did review and getting hate. Who lets kids walk behind in a world like that? Okay, I'm just going to ignore the first line. Phil, like Last Man on Earth. I have no idea what that statement means. Again, guys, please reread over your stuff before you send it in. I'll just pick it up from there. Felt A Quiet Place was overhyped. Okay at best. Oh, I'm going to disagree with you about that. Did review and getting hate. Who lets kids walk behind in a world like that? Is that your criticism? That the kids were walking of course, in a world like that, the kids walk behind. In a world where you have to watch every footstep and make sure everything stays absolutely quiet, you put the kids walking behind you to make sure they follow your footsteps, to know exactly where they can go and they can't. You don't let the kids walk out front and step on a piece of glass or snap a twig or something like that. Of course not. Now look, Suburban Nerd, if you watch Quiet Place and it didn't work for you, I think you're a little bit crazy, but that's the thing. All film's subjective. There's, and you know, you're not alone. There's going to be other people out there that didn't like it. If you watched the movie and it just didn't hit you that way, then it didn't hit you that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. I will disagree with you till I'm blue in the face about it, and I completely disagree with you with the problem is who lets kids walk behind in a world like that. Please tell me that's not your only problem with the film, because that's actually a very appropriate thing that should be happening in that movie and in that world. But no, man, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. That's movies. No matter how much I love a movie, I always know there are going to be people who don't, because that's the subjectivity of film. No matter how much I hate a movie, I know somebody out there is going to like it, because that's the subjectivity of film, and that's the beautiful thing about film. So don't be embarrassed about that at all, man. Let's see. Devontae Brown writes, definitely disagree on The Purge 4. Social commentary really sticks out this time, but this is my black dude's point of view, so maybe that's why. Here's the thing. The social commentary felt like social commentary being written by a 4-year-old. I mean, yes, it's true, but the sky is blue is also true. And just because somebody writes the sky is blue, I don't take that as great. I want to like The Purge. I like that there's a couple of the Purge films that I felt did a very good thing in terms of social commentary. The last Purge film totally sucked, but whatever. I just felt to me like, first of all, you cannot disagree that a big chunk of this trailer is just clips from other Purge movies. Like, because that's obvious. That's what it was. But then it just felt like the rest of me was just like any other Purge film. There's a little bit more social commentary in the trailer. I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something. But I felt like what little social commentary there was in the trailer, it just felt like it was very kindergarten and very surface. I didn't feel like there was anything profound or deep or anything like that. And again, it's out of context, so maybe you'd have to see, it's just a trailer. So maybe we got to see the whole movie to get the full oomph of what the filmmakers are going for. I wanted to like it more. I did. I wanted to like it more. But, and you know what, Devontae? A lot of my friends really liked the Purge trailer as well, the first Purge. A lot of my friends really liked it and think I'm crazy for not liking it. And I wanted to like it, but hey, then again, that's the subjectivity of film. Here's hoping the movie turns out, because I really do. I would like to see this franchise get back on track after that mess that was the last one. Okay, the number Thor writes, beat John Wayne movie. Oh, you're probably trying to write best. Best John Wayne movie. I say Rio Bravo. Your thoughts? I like Rio Bravo. True Grit, the original 1969, the 1969 True Grit. But the one that comes to mind for me, probably because I think it was my dad's favorite, was this one he did called Liberty Valance. And maybe you heard that old classic song, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Yeah, it's based on the same legend. That's the one that stands out to me. Maybe I'm biased because I knew it was my dad's favorite, but Liberty Valance is the one that stands out to me. Dante Redgrave writes, I know this won't happen, but hypothetically, how furious would you be if Avengers Infinity War brings back Quicksilver and we find out his death was fake? I don't know that I'd be furious. I'd roll my eyes. I go, oh, God. I'd roll my eyes. I wouldn't be furious about it, but I would totally roll my eyes. Yeah, you're right, Dante. I don't see that happening. It probably would not happen. But it would be, I would roll my eyes so hard I'd probably get whiplash. Like my whole head would turn with the eye roll if they did that. So, but you're right. They probably won't. But oh my God, if they did. The eye rolling would be mighty. The eye rolling would be mighty. All right, let's move on here. KHK Productions writes, I've always wondered, are deleted / cut scenes considered canon, or does it being cut from an original release render them null and void? I've had this discussion a few times. It usually revolves around Star Wars, but I'd say if it's deleted, it's not canon. Here's where it gets tricky. Where it gets tricky is if it's a deleted scene and then not included on the Blu-ray as a deleted scene, but actually edited back into the film on Blu-ray. Like, I think if a scene is deleted, it's not canon. And if it's deleted and then put on a Blu-ray in the deleted scenes collection, it's not canon. Where it gets tricky is if it's not in a deleted scenes thing, but rather edited back into the movie. We've seen that happen a few times with different movies, right? That's where it gets tricky. So, I'll say right now, I think if a deleted scene is put back into a movie on Blu-ray, it becomes canon. If a deleted scene is just on a Blu-ray in a deleted scenes collection, but not edited back into the film itself, then it's not canon. That's what I'll say right now. There may be some exceptions here and there depending on the technicalities of each individual circumstance, but for now, that's what I'll go with. Edited back into the movie on Blu-ray, canon. Only added in a deleted scenes collection, not canon. That's how I'll go with that for now. But again, it would vary from movie to movie. Okay, Warrington Train Spotter 2778 says, I took my young daughter to her first Peter Rabbit, and she loved it. And I think she's got the movie bug now. And we both, your show now, probably mean watch my show now. Keep up the filthy. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for sharing that. Isn't that great when you can go to a movie with a young person like that? I remember, I have no kids of my own yet. And I remember when I used to live in Saskatoon, I had these friends who had, at the time, they had 4 kids. That number increased. But they had 4 kids. And I remember a couple times I got to take them to the movies. And it's just great. I don't know if somebody who's not a big movie fan could understand, like we would understand. But, sitting there in a movie theater, the magic of the movies, I'm going to get weepy-eyed thinking about this. The magic of the movies. And to be there with a kid. And just every once in a while to look down from the screen, look down at the kid and watching the kid's face. Like them falling under the spell of the magic of movies. There's just something awesome about that. And I so envy you that you got to have that experience with your kid. And I think that's great. And thank you so much for sharing that, man. That's really special. Thanks for sharing that. MuseTac Reviews writes, Colton Haynes returning as series regular for Arrow, Season 7. You excited? Nothing excites me about Arrow, but the one thing I will say is this, and I mentioned this on the show before. I liked hearing this news because Arrow was never better than in Seasons 1 and Seasons 2, and even for a part of Season 3, before everything went to hell with Captain Buckles. And if him coming back is signaling kind of a circling back in philosophy of the show and kind of getting back to that core group again and getting rid of this stupid, we want to have our own version of Civil War. And look, anybody in the whole world who can pick up a baseball bat, you're a superhero. If they can get past that bullshit that has essentially ruined this show, and start to get back in their philosophy and quit with the division between Diggle and Oliver and all that kind of thing, get back to the core stuff of what made that show great. That will be something to get excited about. And maybe Colton Haynes coming back is a signal of that. Maybe it's not. I'm just saying, if it is a signal of them circling back to that older philosophy they had on the show, oh my God, I'd be so excited. That would be exciting, because I've been waiting for them to make this show worthy of a Stephen Amell again. Because I think Stephen Amell as Arrow is fantastic. It's just that they've devolved this show around him into being like pretty poor. But anyway, we'll see how that all goes. Beast Gaming writes, what movie in the last 2 years or so flew under the radar to most people and is a great movie in your opinion? What movie in the last few years flew under the radar? So if we're saying under the radar, we got to say it like didn't have like a lot of people go out and watch it. So that's fair. Not a lot of people have gone out and watched it. See, I was going to say Molly's Game, but Molly's Game, I mean, it got some Oscar buzz and stuff like that, so you can't really say it flew under the radar. There's a couple of others I could say, but they made decent money at the box office, so you can't say those ones either. You know what? I'm going to go Logan Lucky. Logan Lucky is, people talked about it for about a week. It disappeared. It made hardly any money at the box office. I think it made like under 20 million. Or if not under, then it was close. So I'm going to say Logan Lucky on that. And I thought Logan Lucky was a pretty damn good movie. I thought that was a pretty damn good movie. Not an all-time great movie, but a pretty damn good one. And I think it flew under a lot of people's radars. I know a lot of people didn't see it at all. But you got Adam Driver, Channing Tatum. It's a really solid cast. And I think more people should have gone and checked it out. But anyway, good question, man. All right, let's see this one. This one comes to us from Marvel Diesel, or Marv Diesel writes, GC, oh, Giovanni Campia. Do actor salaries count towards movie budgets? Oh, absolutely they do. Absolutely, yeah, 100%. That's, depending on the movie, that can be a big chunk of a movie's budget. How much money does it cost to make this movie? The actor salaries are definitely one of what they call an above-the-line cost. Yes, actor salaries do count towards the budget of a movie. SSJ Jr. Goku Black writes, just a heads up, the correct way to pronounce the first part of my name is SSJR, not SS Jr. Well, there you go. Which show do you hate more, Supergirl or Jessica Jones? Supergirl. Because I hold it against them the way they treated the greatest superhero of all time, Superman. They treated Superman like a sniveling little bitch. And they did not show respect to that character. I got nothing against Jessica Jones. I just didn't think it quite worked, but they didn't do anything egregious. Supergirl as a show can burn in hell for the way they treated Superman. But so definitely the one I hate more is Supergirl. I don't hate Jessica Jones. Let's see. MuseTac Reviews writes, wow, Chris Stuckman is in your live chat. Also, John, thoughts on the Flick Pick? I'm not familiar with Flick Pick, but as far as Chris Stuckman things, I know Chris. I like Chris. It's not like we're buddies and talk on the phone all the time, but I know Chris Stuckman. Good dude, really good film reviewer. But I'm going to guarantee you right now, that probably wasn't him in my chat board. I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about, but if you saw somebody with the username Chris Stuckman in my chat board, it probably wasn't Chris. I'm just going to say that right now. Let's see here. Cameron Wiskovich writes, here's an existential question, John. Is Spider-Man Iron Man Jr., or is Iron Man Spider-Man Sr.? Ooh, Spider-Man is Iron Man Jr. because there's nothing remotely similar to Spider-Man in Iron Man. So I will go that. But I like it when we bring up philosophical questions. And the final question today comes to us from Dan Sokolov, who writes, yes, producers won't trust TJ Miller anymore. However, Remember how nobody wanted to hire Robert Downey Jr. for, I don't know what TS is. That turned out well. Good job with my surname, by the way. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Well, that's exactly what I was saying earlier. Like, look, Robert Downey Jr., he sabotaged his own career twice. And you had periods of years where he wasn't getting work. Nobody wanted to work with him. But he could come back. And most of his stuff was all self-inflicted damage. He was just doing things to himself. He wasn't hurting people around him per se. I mean, yes, I understand people who have abuse problems do hurt the people around him. I understand. But I'm saying that his offenses were not like going out and beating people or whatever. He was doing things to himself. And that's what I was mentioning about TJ Miller earlier. I want him held accountable because I want him to be able to disappear for a couple of years so he can come back and get back to entertaining us. That's what he was put on this earth to do, to be an entertainer and be great at it. And I would love to see him being able to do that. But, you know, Robert Downey Jr. was only able to get back to the point that he was at because ultimately people held him accountable. And until that happened, he couldn't make changes in his own life. And I hope that happens for TJ Miller, not because I want to see him get screwed over, but because I want him entertaining. I want him to do what he does best without the clutter of all the other nonsense that he has going on because of stupid decisions he makes now. But anyway, that's just my thought on that. Anyway, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion video. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this, guys. Don't forget, join me every morning for the John Campea Show at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Open mic is at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. My name is John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.